Hey, did you guys sleep here again today? Wake up, I told you not to sleep here. Great, this is great, guys. We have to do another cold opening and you're wearing the same clothes you had yesterday.
Oh, I had the most amazing dream.
Oh, that's crazy, me too.
Unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows.
I dreamed that Jeff turned into a unicorn and he paid us in rainbows.
The Ice Cream Sandwich King asked me to slay Tyrannosaurus Timothy and his robot rebellion.
Morgan Freeman really is God.
This is perfect.
Not now, Jeff. We're talking about dreams.
Yeah, dreams.
Dreams!
My dream is that I have interns that are normal enough to stop goofing around and actually be prepared to do a video intro. Like normal people.
Really? That's your dream?
Yeah, it is.
Alan.
Way ahead of you.
Give me that. Boy, I sure love having normal interns that act like normal people all the time.
We love you, Jeff!
You guys!
I guess we should hide the body until he wakes up.
Not a bad idea.
Okay.
Oh! Live
from Riverside Theater,
it's
RCT
On The Go! Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Horger, and I am an instructor and director at Riverside Children's Theater. I also supervise RCT On The Go. One of the plays we are currently touring is Cows Don't Fly and Other Known Facts by Vivian and Larry Snipes. The play is based on the popular children's book series The Cow Who Wouldn't Come Down, The Pig Who Ran a Red Light, and The Goose Who Went Off in a Huff by Paul Brett Johnson. In the play, Miss Rosemary tries to go about business as usual on her farm, but the unique residents of her farm have other plans. This play explores a world where extraordinary things happen on a regular basis. Paul Brett Johnson wrote the books, but Vivian and Larry Snipes wrote the play. Our actors are going to talk about this process in a moment, but first...
10-second answers!
In this next segment, we took a survey amongst various people at Riverside Theater about a topic related to the play. In this episode, the prompt was, in 10 seconds, tell us the name of a book that you think would make a good play and why.
One book that would be a real good one to adapt, it was one written by Stephen King for children, actually, and it's called The Eyes of the Dragon.
I would pick Where the Wild Things Are. It probably already has been turned into a play. I know that it has been turned into a movie because I saw it, but particularly for children, I just think it's a really magical story and would be fun for kids to do and has a really good message.
It's sort of a medieval piece about a kid who is locked away in a dungeon by there's an evil sorcerer. And
The Phantom Toll Booth, because there's so much fun stuff in it. It's incredibly ridiculous for almost the entire book.
a kind of a Lord of the Rings, his sort of stab at doing a Lord of the Rings type of a story.
I think the Rainbow Fish would make a great play because it's about being different and being accepted.
And for those who know Stephen King's other books, there's actually characters like Randall Flagg who are in The Stand and a bunch of other stuff later on.
I think The Great Gatsby would be a great play because it is super fun and there's so much going on. That'd be so cool to see on stage. And that's a play that I would love to work on.
But this one is for kids, and it's about this one kid using all these different ingenious ways to try and get out of the castle.
I think The Giver would make a good play because there's like different futuristic kind of costumes and the plot is really awesome. You know, it has lots of turns and twists and keeps your attention. And it also makes you think about, you know, really hard stuff.
It's a very, very cool story, and I always thought it would make a really good one. And especially because it's Stephen King, you don't really think of Stephen King as writing for children at all. Unless you have weird kids, like me.
Stories have always been an important part of the human existence. Whether to entertain or inform, human beings have been creating and telling stories throughout the ages.
Sometimes a story can be a summary or an explanation of something that actually happened. Now, this can be as long and detailed as the history of a country over the course of a century. Or it can be as short and simple as telling your friend that you saw a celebrity walking down the street, or something silly that your dog did at the park.
Now, other times, stories are works of fiction, which basically means the whole thing was made up. Now, some authors are so creative that they've created whole book series about fictional characters and situations, like the Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, or the Harry Potter books. Now, short stories are even more prevalent in our everyday lives. Examples of those might be lyrics to the song that you heard on the radio, or story problems in a math textbook. And a lot of jokes even come in the form of short stories.
Whereas stories were mostly told by word of mouth throughout the years, the emergence of a reading and writing system has really made the popularity of stories grow.
Now that stories could be written down, they were becoming more widely available, and stories were becoming more consistent because people were reading the exact same version.
And having the exact same version of a story meant that more people could become familiar with it. This led to an increase in popularity and the amount of knowledge that people had about certain stories. Now, authors began to take advantage of this popularity of the stories and began to borrow material from those sources.
The simplest form of reusing or retelling a story is called adaptation. When someone adapts a story, they change little to none of the details about that story. For example, the plots and setting and characters stay the same. The new adapted version of the story is the same plot and same characters and settings as the original story. Sometimes the story will be adapted from a play, or, for example, a play will go from a movie will go to a musical, or even sometimes a movie will be turned into a book. Although new elements are not added to the story, sometimes an author will delete certain elements in order to make the story shorter.
A slightly more complicated form of retelling or reusing a story is called interpretation. When someone uses interpretation, they keep a lot of the same details from the original story, but they add a number of new changes to their new version. The interpreted version could have changes such as new characters, new conversations or dialogue between characters, or possibly a new ending to the story. Interpretation is probably the most common form of retelling a story, and it always happens when a story is told in one language and retold in another, because some of the words actually mean different things.
The third and most complicated form of retelling or reusing a story is called appropriation. When someone uses appropriation, they don't take the whole story in its entirety, but rather they take certain elements from the story and turn it into something completely new. This appropriation could consist of several characters from an original story doing something completely different than the original plot, such as the dwarfs from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs never meeting Snow White, but instead flying to the moon. Another form of appropriation could be taking a specific plot element, like the mirror from Snow White, and putting it into an entirely different fairy tale altogether.
So, remember, the three ways of retelling a story are adaptation, appropriation, and interpretation.
Adaptation changes almost nothing about the story. Interpretation only changes key elements of the story, and appropriation only uses key elements of the story without using the basic story.
We realize that this sounds pretty complicated, so we have a few examples for you.
Most people are familiar with The Wizard of Oz. It was originally part of a book series created by L. Frank Baum. The book told the story of a girl named Dorothy who traveled from Kansas to a magical world where she met several extraordinary people and helped defeat the evil Wicked Witch of the West. In 1939, they made a movie out of it. You've probably seen it or at least heard about it. This movie was an interpretation of the book because it told the same story, but they changed several parts of the story. For example, in the book, Dorothy had silver slippers, but in the movie they were ruby slippers. Also, the movie was a musical, so this added several song and dance elements to the story. Now remember, the basic story was the same, but a lot of things were changed, so it was an interpretation.
The movie version of The Wizard of Oz was very popular at the time and continues to be a modern classic among viewers today. It was so popular that they decided to make a stage version of the musical. They kept the songs and characters and really only updated it enough to allow it to make a successful transition from screen to stage. Because there was little change about the story, it was an adaptation, nice and simple.
The Wizard of Oz has been around for so long that people have started to get very creative with the story. One of the more popular Broadway musicals today is Wicked, a musical that tells a different story from the point of view of the Wicked Witch of the West. Earlier this year, a movie came out called Oz the Great and Powerful that told yet another story from the point of view of the wizard himself. These are both examples of appropriation because they're not actually using the same story as in L. Frank Baum's book. They're just using similar characters and locations. So to recap.
Telling the story without changing much at all?
Adaptation. Telling the story by changing a few things here and there?
Interpretation. Changing more things than you're keeping the same?
Appropriation.
Now, I realize we may have blindsided you just now with a whole lot of educational talk, but don't worry. I assure you that above all else, Cows Don't Fly is a silly, funny, and thoroughly enjoyable theatrical experience. We hope that you get a chance to see RCT On The Go perform Cows Don't Fly and Other Known Facts live. But in case you don't, well, we hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Jeff Horger. Catch you later.
Like that old stuff.
Community It's breakfast time!
This is the best kind of breakfast!
Word! RCT On The Go is funded in part by Quail Valley Charities.
Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed the video, and we hope you learned something too.
The learning process is a pretty cool thing. As human beings, we all have innate curiosity that sets us on a path towards knowledge.
Studying is important and research can be fun, but sometimes the best way to get information is just to ask a question.
We here at RCT want to help you answer your questions. If you want to know about something, just ask.
It can be about anything, math, history, art, whatever interests you. Send us your question and we'll answer it.
Email your question to jeffh@riversidetheater.com. Make sure that you include your name, the city where you live, your grade, and the name of the school. That way, if we select your question on our next video, we can give you a shout out.
Until next time.
See you later.
That's a wrap. Bye.
Bye.